in your companies. And the first step is to create a sense of urgency around that. So what's broken in the company? Like, we always, when we do training with companies, I always get, an S&OP sponsor level kind of person, the MD or a VP, that person's going to sponsor this. And I always ask him or her to say, why do we need to do anything differently? Who cares? Oh, it's a great idea. Improve teamwork, communication. It all sounds good, right? Well, a lot of stuff sounds good. But what are we actually going to focus our time on? So there needs to be a reason, a sense of urgency. So if you want to implement S&OP, what are some metrics that are not good in your company? Okay, inventory turns are too low. We're missing customer shipments on time and full. Not good. Our forecast accuracy sucks, and that's causing us to miss shipments. Or that's causing us to build the wrong stuff. Right? So who cares? Okay? The who cares part is going to get somebody's attention. Then talk about it in terms of, okay, well, let's get at least one set of plans in the company. Finance has one set. Sales has one set. We have visibility of the budget. These all sound good things. Like, who's going to argue with that? But again, it needs to be tied to the results, because it's a bit of an effort. You got to get people together. They have to agree on stuff. You got to pull some data together. It's all work. Now, it saves work in the long run, as I was saying. But in the short one, someone's going to say, oh, yeah, no more meetings. I can't do it. So it's got to be tied to the metrics. That comes out of an analysis. Okay. Please.
Okay, so can we start the discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We're at that.
Okay,
Before I'll finish. When we finish the discussion, I'll have just a couple more closing points.
Oh.
But let's do the discussion first.
Oh, okay. So you go first, then you. Okay.
Thanks, Eric. I think so. It's really nice to me to get many insights from your sharing. This is one of the reasons that's why I came to this event.
Thank you.
Because you will be in this Jakarta. I have one question. This is regarding based on your, because we already implemented, but it's just a year. I think still newbie. And then I want to ask you, what is regarding from the rolling forecast? What is the benchmarking that this is the ideal way, or how months that rolling forecast should be set in our S&OP?
Yep.
And then this is the first part A, and then the B is regarding the how much the reference of the forecast accuracy in our target, maybe based on industry.
Sure.
This is the B, and then the C is regarding the schedule of the executive S&OP.
Yeah.
This is the ideal way is when we conduct the executive S&OP. This is in the end of month or middle of the month, or I think the beginning of the month. And then how long? Just an hour or 2 hours? This is we need to get your feedback. And then the D, what is part D? Should we build dedicated person that involved in the S&OP, or we just add on in the, let's say, supply chain and then also sales for the demand, or we need to build dedicated organization for the S&OP?
So this is a test in how many questions I can remember.
I will help you, Eric. So yeah, maybe you can also share in what industry that you're in now.
My industry is a material building. This is like ceiling tile, plasterboard.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually the
Let me take the first question first about
the rolling forecast
associated with the rolling forecast. Thank you. So some people will tell you, oh, well, it needs to be 24 months. Okay, all right, nice. Why? Some people say, oh, best practice, the more mature, oh, they're going on farther, 36 months. So I asked why, and I told you I had a client, 3 months, right? That's all they're going to do. So, best practices or benchmarks is a place to start, but you always want to evaluate what is best for my business. So what drives that? So what drives what the horizon should be? First thing, longest lead time item, right, in part of the manufacturing process. So we at least need to go out that long for MRP, things like the supporting processes to work, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is how are we going to integrate financial planning and what do they need in terms of a rolling forecast? So, my one client, for example, that did 3 months, that worked fine from an operational perspective, wasn't good enough for finance. They're looking at their financial projections longer than that, right? Because somebody in corporate wants to know. So, because somebody needs to tell the stockholders something. So that didn't get that financial integration piece. Ideally, I would have matched the duration of the S&OP horizon with what was required for finance. So that's 2 things. The third thing is if we think about the scope of the decisions we're going to make in S&OP, we need to take that into consideration. How long does it take us to respond to a third shift or doing something at the plant or dialing something back? Our horizon for that might be, or our response time for that might be 3, 6, 9, 12 months. I don't know. Those are the considerations. So lead time, financial integration, operational kind of change or structural change in the supply chain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
For our cases, we set just a 3 months rolling forecast with the considering the longest lead time for the production from the material lead time until the production. So is it already correct or not?
That's one of the things. If all your operationally you can handle it in 3 months, that's a place to start. But talk to your CFO and see if they want to plan out farther than 3 months. I bet he or she will say no. Okay. All right. Second question was
the accuracy of the.
Yeah. So benchmarks and forecast accuracy vary somewhat by industry and repetibility and difficulty. So I've got actually a slide on that in the deck, in the training deck for tomorrow, and I'm going to try to remember. So best class in forecast accuracy. Some companies are doing like 90%, if you can believe that. That sounds very high. But in other industries that are, maybe more like construction or more kind of project-based type industries, for that, yeah, maybe 60% there, 70% if it's, good. All right, third one.
The third one is about the executive S&OP, how often?
Scheduling, it's an issue, right? I said week 4 for that meeting. Well, the management team says, no. We're getting together like as soon as the financials come out, and we're going to figure out what's going on so we can be proactive. We're going to have the executive S&OP meeting in week 1. Well, no, because we have demand review, supplier review. So the way we usually solve that problem is say, look, you can have your meeting, a flash financial meeting, in week kind of whatever you want, and start to think about the performance, right? But our executive S&OP, you need to let this process happen beforehand. And a lot of times we won't make that a separate meeting because these guys are hard to get. And they're like, we're going to get together, we get together in week, whatever. And so we kind of tag executive S&OP into like a monthly business review. And we'll put, an agenda item. And maybe some months there aren't any executive S&OP kind of decisions, which is good because we either resolve them in pre-S&OP or there just weren't any. But we still have the scorecard to manage, right? Always, every month. So we'll try to tag it into kind of their monthly business review, and if they need that financial up front, yeah, they get a flash financial report or something like that. That's how we normally get around that problem. What else?
The resources is
For-
we need a dedicated person for an S&OP process.
Yeah, so you need an S&OP kind of leader, but it's not a separate organization, right? It's maybe like a supply chain director that's kind of the backbone of coordinating all these components, pulling these together, and linking what happens at the more operating level with the executive level. That's a job. Maybe not a full-time job in some companies, but in big companies it can be a job. And your S&OP team is also part of your supply organization. My demand manager runs demand review. My supply planner, who's also working on all the detail below, but also runs the supply review. So it's not a separate organization, but it needs some attention. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
What else?
The next one?
Hi.
Yeah.
Shamir here. Yeah. So, yeah. So I just have a couple of questions. Or two. Yeah. Okay. So the first one is, I don't know whether you get asked this a lot, but S&OP in a software company, right? So there is no physical product per se.
Yeah.
But I think it's important because there's still a supply. You need developers to type that stuff out, right? There's no inventory per se. I mean, the file sizes are small, but you still have to manage it.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of supply per se. Maybe if you could share some experiences. I don't know whether you work with a software company.
So, I haven't worked with S&OP in a software company where there's no product, but I have worked with S&OP in a consulting company where there's no product. Right? So think about that, right? There's no tangible things, kind of the same thing. So, any company that has a demand for its product or service has to put resources against that. Developers, consultants, and has to manage a financial plan and integrate that, needs some level of kind of process. Does it have the same components that we just described? Probably not. Right? When we did this in upstream oil and gas, you think they had a demand review? No. Demand was whatever they could produce to put in the pipeline. Right? So they didn't have something called demand review, or pre-S&OP. But we changed the components, the names of them to fit the particular business model. So for your case, you've got customers, you've got a financial goal plan, you've got to figure out what customers are rolling up to hit your financial plan. Once you have that, you got to figure out how am I going to source developers to meet that plan. And that's probably where it ends.
Yeah.
Right?
So that is one.
Or maybe there's a new software product or a new version coming out. How's that going to fit into the demand, contribute to revenue? There's a way to do it. Go back to first principles, right? It's kind of balancing supply and demand, integrating financials and product.
Yeah. Organized.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The second question is, I mean, you touched on it a bit just now, and I'm also looking at your ebook. So you're saying most of the time S&OP teams should be like a cross-hop team, but there's not necessarily a dedicated function per se, like a head of S&OP or team. But that said, right, I do know that SAP, at least the software company, actually has a head of S&OP with an entire department. So software company and dedicated organization. So where do you strike that balance? I mean,
So the terminology is all over the place, right? And I don't know if the SAP that you described is managing their internal process, as we just talked about, or it's something where they're creating something in the marketplace called an S&OP product. And
no, it's a process.
Okay, it's a process
Like
with internal to
demand forecast.
internal.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a big company, SAP, right? So maybe in that case it makes sense for them. But in most companies, it's part of a director of supply chain role to do that. A big work, maybe a big part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other one?
Yes, we still have time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eric. Very interesting presentation. Actually, I'm Sigit from Pertamina. Actually, we already done some monthly meeting for S&OP between sales, production, and me in distribution. Actually, for the whole process of us, what is your opinion, or maybe there is a key point that can help to answer my current problem? Means Pertamina has bigger demand than its capacity of production itself. Sometimes we have like priority level of product, and then high-tech product which is have more margin than others, but there is also have like erratic moment when the sales grow directly and it's others. How is your opinion when we have demand more than the production capacity? Meanwhile, the management cannot give me allow to doing outsourcing because it refers to the cost and maybe the what is we call a recipe of our product.
Yep.
So they cannot put to another resourcing company.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, understand.
It's
So
a happy
the question involves what happens if we don't have enough capacity to meet demand, and about decisions associated with recipes that we may not necessarily want to outsource because maybe there's some proprietary mix and so forth there, right? So the first part of the question is, I would extend the planning horizon for demand that gives you the necessary time to respond from a capacity planning perspective. Maybe that is CapEx in your own plants, maybe that's improved processes to improve throughput with your existing equipment. So in other words, it sounds like you guys are getting surprised by upside demand, which is a good problem to have,
Good
fundamentally.
problem. Happy problem.
Right, it's a good problem. But if you're on the supply side, it makes your life hard. So you've got to find a way to get better visibility farther out. You know, who knows how accurate it is? That's a whole nother question. But at least start getting some level of visibility, and you can put it. You can put the business case together. You can say, look, had all the surprise demand, and guess how much margin we lost because we didn't know about it. It was this much money. Anyone feel bad about losing that much money? And if they do, then maybe they'll do something about it. If they don't care, then they want to lose money. Now, in terms of the proprietariness of your technology, then that's another business decision. Do we want to maybe not make it proprietary and make more money? Or do we want to keep it all together? Do we want a smaller piece of something bigger? Or do we want a bigger piece of something smaller? Right? That's kind of the fundamental question from a business perspective.